Well, I'm excited to have you on this episode. And we were just talking off camera. I said, let's start recording. So I'm going to ask you again, where do you live?
I don't have a current home at the moment. I would say the world is kind of my home right now. I decided last year, it'll be almost a year in May. I decided last year to sell everything and start traveling. I needed something different. I literally woke up on a Monday morning and was like, something has to change. I'm done.
That's like, no, so if I understand correctly, are you like doing the digital nomad lifestyle where you kind of living off a laptop and making money off a laptop?
Yeah, I have an online speaking business and I've truly traveled the world. I even created like this 30-day plan to go from Sydney, Australia. I went from Tampa, Florida, Sydney, Australia, Bali, Indonesia, Dubai, Portugal, back to Miami. And then I'm just kind of figuring my way around the US and I'm doing my best not to leave the country before my event in August.
So what's that event about?
So that's another speaking event. It'll be my third year coaching a group of speakers to the stage. It's called The Power of Voice. And this one's going to be in Miami.
The digital nomad lifestyle, is that something that you aspired to be? Is that something that you just kind of fell into?
I think somehow I manifested this. I don't think it's a forever thing. I needed to scare myself as much as possible and live on the edge because I was finding myself to be a little bit bored with my life, a little stagnant, complacent. And so when I took the leap to sell everything and everybody thought I was crazy, I knew I was going to set myself free in a way. I needed to not be confined to the typical constructs for a little while. I was just burnt out with like typical structure. I had the corporate lifestyle before that, started my business. Then I woke up one day and I'm telling you, I didn't want that.
Before you started your business, what were you doing?
I was working in corporate.
In what
Duke
field?
Energy Corporation. It's a largest utility company on the East Coast.
So that's completely different than what you're doing today.
Kind of. Oh, well, yes. I mean, the format, the business model, of course, because there I was an employee. Now I'm an entrepreneur, but I was still doing speaking. I was facilitating workshops
in corporate.
Yeah.
Is that where you learned the skill?
That's where I launched my speaking career, but I'll be honest, nobody's actually sat me down and taught me the skill. It came, like I was sharing with your friend a little bit ago, it came to me through a vision. I was working at a speech therapy company and that's where it happened. That was before corporate. But as the speech, I was not a therapist, excuse me. I was the office manager.
Okay.
And what I was able to do was witness what it was like for people to not access their voice. And like you and I, we don't have that problem right now, right? Like, but maybe there's people like us who aren't using their voice. I didn't really put all the dots together until I got the vision. And
what did that vision look like?
Well, I was on stage. So it happened, I was setting up this conference room and it sounds like a weird thing. Like, why do these things happen? How do these things happen? There was no one person that stood out to me or was inspiring me at the time. I was setting up the conference room, the lights were off, and out of nowhere, it was just like, phew, I got this panoramic view of myself on stage. I was practicing a script and I was like doing the whole thing. And I was like, well, that's weird. That's weird. What do you do with that? And so as soon as I started following it, kind of like a North Star, life got really hard, actually. The doors started opening, but life got really hard because then I was forced to confront some things I didn't realize were even an issue. You know?
Mm-hmm. Where were you when you had that specific vision?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
What were you doing at that moment?
So that's where I was setting up the event. So every year we would have an annual contract re-sign for our speech therapists. They were speech pathologists, and they were the ones that would go into the kids' home and do the therapy. And some of these kids had autism, other speech impediments, issues that they would deal with their entire youth. And I just managed the office. So I was helping with the insurance claims. I was reading the case summaries. And for this particular event, I was setting up our annual re-sign. So they would come in and I would set it up. It was mostly just for the therapist. Nobody was in the room when I got the vision.
Yeah.
I was setting up the presentation. So the business owner had everything she needed. I was just making sure everything was in place. And
your story is interesting. In 2016, I got the vision of speaking on stage. I was laying down in bed.
Go us.
And I was like thinking, oh, is it something similar that you were in? Now, mind you, I wanted to move to Charlotte. And I'm from Rhode Island.
Wow.
And I said, I'm gonna move away from Rhode Island. And I was headed towards Charlotte, North Carolina. And then I diverted and went to LA and I ended up setting up shop in LA. And that's where I had that vision. And I was wondering, I wonder if it's something similar, like a similar journey that you were like laying down in bed and you closed your eyes and then you saw the same thing, but you were at the actual venue when you saw yourself speaking on stage?
It was a conference room.
Oh,
That was not
okay.
the vision. It was just a glimpse at the vision, but that space, there was no stage. It
Yeah,
was
I
just a
see.
conference room with seats. It was like a classroom style setup.
Yeah.
I think it's God. I don't know what else it would be, because I would have never let me pick this.
For sure.
And nobody said you should do public speaking. So then I had to hound my parents, and I said, so is it you? Did you hand this down genetically? Like, where is this coming from? And I did find out that my father, so I grew up with the stepfathers. My father left before I was born and went into the military my whole life. But I found out he was director of the Army band. He's a musician. He used to give speeches to hundreds and hundreds of military people. And I think a talent has also been handed down. So there may be somebody in your family as well that had that type of skill.
My mom was a singer.
All right, then. You see, it's weird how it connects. It's generational. And I think my mother as well had some leadership traits.
So how long between that vision to you leaving corporate and starting your speaking career?
That was probably when the road was super bumpy. So I was at that speech therapy company for about 4 years. And then I tried to start my own business first in business operations, but I didn't know how to sell. So I met people in the same business complex, and they're like, yeah, come work with us. We'll be one of your first clients. And I had a couple clients. And then I was like, oh crap, if I put all of my time, energy, and effort on fulfillment, I'm not making sales. I'm not getting people.
Right.
And so I ended up very quickly failing. I'll be honest with you. And within 24 hours, I put my resume out there, got a response for a corporate role that was doing exactly what it was that I was trying to do for the small business owners.
So you went from working corporate, you tried to start your business?
Backwards. So the other way around. Speech therapy, tried to start my own business as in operations. Then I got into corporate as a process analyst, facilitating workshops. Then I took the leap.
Then you took the leap.
Correct.
And so approximately how long was that from vision to taking that leap?
Yeah. Okay.
Was that months or was that years?
No, years.
Years?
There were a few years in there for sure, because I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't follow it directly. I thought my path was going to be in operations. So I was confused about that.
Okay.
I would say I was in the speech therapy company in 2015, 2017. I left my corporate job maybe 2 years ago.
Just 2 years ago from now?
Yeah.
Okay. Phenomenal. And how has the journey been?
Hard.
Yeah. What's the most challenging?
The juggle. I mean, it's really a juggle, because it takes time to build a team, takes time to train a team, because you don't want to be the blind leading the blind, of course, right? And so I'm paving a way that's not yet in place. I was trained by some mentors and coaches along the way, but they do things their way, and that's what works for them. I had to kind of take their advice and apply what could work for me, and realize, okay, that's not going to be in my best interest. That's not how I want to run my business. And so it's been a matter of, okay, for any mentorship or direction I've been given, what do I want to keep? How can I apply that to my business and teach others? And then how can I make sure they're successful in their role? But at the same time, they have a growth curve, right? There's a learning curve for them as well. And then it's really a matter of catching the sales, having the conversations, providing, quality service to my clients. And then me, myself, getting back out on stage and then doing, it's the juggle, I think, is the hardest part. And then on top of that, not having that home base has both amazing parts to it and some really scary parts to it, because it's complete uncertainty.
Like where you're going to be.
Yeah, where do I want to go next? Yeah. Because I do believe our environment plays a huge role in our inspiration. I think if I've learned anything about changing my environment, immersing myself into different cultures and talking to different people, I really gain some perspective. And the U.S. does things one way. And then inside of the U.S., we have the different cities and states that do things their way. But then you go into these other countries and it's like, oh my gosh, there's a whole world out here that we're not even considering. Unless you go there, of course.
Unless you experience it. And are you finding it challenging? Because I remember that was one of my challenges. Are you finding it challenging to play the role of the speaker delivering the service and the trainer versus the speaker to acquire customers versus the business owner who's managing operations, sales, systems, fulfillment, marketing, so on and so forth, taxes, all those elements?
Yes.
And
yes. It's like you have to be an Olympic champion here.
Yeah.
You have to bend and mold into different shapes. And so originally I launched my speaking career in corporate thinking, okay, if I either pursue an MBA or start these mastermind programs, I'll be a speaker. I'm going to learn how to be a speaker. What's the path here? But what ended up happening is I wasn't taught how to be a speaker. I was taught how to be a coach. And so then it became, I'm building out a program. Now I'm here servicing other people, getting them on stage. And then I was like, well, hold on a second. The whole reason I started this was so I could be the speaker. I want to create my impact from stage, but these detours happen for a reason. And I think it's given me an opportunity to transform through my work, coaching, in order to be a better speaker.
And what's the business model like that you follow? Are you selling a course? Are you getting paid a service fee? What does that look like?
The most frequent offer that I have is going to be like my 6-month program. Usually
is that Speak Affluence?
Yes.
Wow.
But Speak Affluence can take on a couple different shapes depending on the frequency in which somebody wants to move, right? So it's technically an accelerator program. It can go from 3 months to 6 months. Just depends on how fast somebody's moving or if they have an engagement coming up. I've worked with people who have no speaking experience and they don't need to rush the learning. So I recommend that they stay with me for 6 months and it's more of a bi-weekly cadence versus like weekly over here in the 3-month program where they're like, I've got this event, this event, this event. They've got maybe a foundation in place already. Some don't, but some do. And we move very fast together. And then there's every now and then I get the one-off. They're like, I don't need all that. I just need a quick session. So I have an isolated session for those individuals as well or return clients.
Are you training on the ability to communicate like stage presence, their story, frameworks of speaking, or is it here's the money when you're a speaker, here's how to make money, here's how to make income?
So that's where Speak Affluence came into play. Originally, my program was called One Presentation Away, and it was just about creating the talk and making sure you were well rehearsed, embodied for when you got on stage. Then I started working with different coaches who taught me about this really high-paying skill called selling from stage, right?
To be a platform?
And I'm about it. Like I'm about it. I want to know everything I can about it. I've learned some things that I may not use for myself. You know, they get pretty advanced, like the Tony Robbins and these really big events where they have next level psychology skills that they use on stage to get people into that emotional buying state, right? So what I've started to do is tap into the presentation structure that would enable them to start selling or pitching or get comfortable with asking for money from stage or pitching their services. So that's why I call it Speak Affluence. There's some money beliefs that I want to overcome with people, right? There's always those like icky money beliefs that hold people back. I want to crush those by getting people to talk more about their products and services, even if the call to action is not buy my stuff. Even if the call to action is still inspiring, they're still prepping for when they are ready to sell or when they're doing like an opt-in. They might not go into the full-blown pitch right away, but I'm priming them for that direction.
Are you selling from stage?
I did webinars.
Okay.
I did webinars. So I've been waiting for the right stage opportunities. I've had a couple, but what I find is they're not always my audience, right? Because I think it's a twofold street. Like, who do I want to work with as well? I don't want it to just be, let me take your money. I can give you this and it's going to work. No, I know because it's a higher ticket program that I don't want to work with just anybody. I go all in with my clients and it's usually one-on-one support that I offer. So there's people that I know that when I see them or when I just have a simple conversation with them, I'm like, yeah, you're somebody that I would want to work with. I know I can help you.
Yeah. Who's your ideal client?
Technical experts.
Oh.
So it's interesting because I didn't know that at first. Originally, I was like, I'm going to work with other coaches and just entrepreneurs, like big scale. But what ended up happening was I started attracting in like financial advisors. And then I recently was working with dentists. And these are people who are highly technical, right? There's a lot of logic and technicality behind their language and what they're talking about all the time. So then how do they make their presentations better? Like the guy that's talking about taxes and accounting, like that's not a fun topic to talk about, right? How do you make that more entertaining so people want to listen?
And you give them that skill to communicate something that they're very specific, they have specific technical knowledge in. And is it to communicate about the technical skills or is it to communicate about something completely different usually?
Well, it depends on if they have an engagement coming up. You know, it depends on what their target audience is and where they're headed.
So is that
next.
something primary? Like, hey, I have an engagement coming up. Prepare me?
Sometimes. That's the most frequent, yes.
Oh, okay.
I am meeting people at that place on their journey. Then I have some people that are like, I did have one man say, cybersecurity. He says, you know, I've been told my whole life I don't have executive presence. And so I've lost out on a lot of opportunities because I don't carry this presence that other people carry. And so for him, it was like I had to challenge him in a different way because it's not always about just the message, right? There's like, who do you want to become when you're sharing the message? And so the technical individuals, they're just very left brain. And they know they bore their audience, and they know that they could be more exciting.
Yeah.
And so that's where storytelling comes in, of course. And that's where some kind of audience reciprocation, like teaching them those audience engagement techniques and teaching them how to be themselves. Like, it's not always like super serious. We don't have to just be a super serious expert all the time. You know, especially if you're at a conference where everybody's talking about kind of the same stuff. Like, how are you going to stand out as a speaker?
Right.
Right.
What is like some of the top skills or the top things that they should know if someone who's a technical expert, they're watching this podcast and they're saying to themselves, like, that's cool. You work with dentists. I'm a dentist. Or you work with cybersecurity specialists. That's me. And I want to show up powerfully on stage. I want to get on those stages. I mean, there's the technical know-how of like who to contact to get on stages and what the process is. But once I'm on the stage, what needs to be different in my presence? And how do I do that? If you could give them 3 tips right now, what would those tips be?
Well, the first is you need to be bought into your message no matter what. If you believe in it, you can sell it. It doesn't matter what it is. That's my first thing. You have to be crystal clear.
Do most people already have their message?
No. So my company, even though I have Speak Affluence, that's the program. My company is called Your Signature Talk. So the customization of the talk itself is what I get into with them. But it first has to start with that clarity. Who are you? Who are you serving? And how are you serving them? And then making sure they're not overselling while they're on stage, like overly talking about the how of a thing, right? They say you want to sell the who, the what, and the why, not the how. Leave the how for your paid services. But they kill the sale, or they kill that desire to want to learn more by giving it all away. I'm going to create a post on this. Actually, it's called like, why buy the how when you can get the content for free?
Why buy the what?
The how.
The how?
Why buy the how when you can get the content for free? Why buy the milk?
Okay.
Right? When you can get why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free?
Yeah.
Right? So the first tip is you need to be crystal clear, operating in your integrity. So you're not guessing, you're not trying to wing it. I know a lot of people who like to wing it on stage when it could be an amazing opportunity you want to take advantage of. Step 2 would be know your stories. What are your key stories? So if you're trying to make a point, obviously, I don't know if you know this quote, I'm sure you do, but never make a point without telling a story, and never tell a story without making a point. Storytelling is what's going to bring them in. Anytime somebody's going to be telling a story, or everybody leans in. It engages them. So tap into the imagination. Do that. Because sometimes I see some really brutal images of like the work that these guys are doing. And I'm like, how can you like soften this up a little bit? Or how can you make this more exciting to, number one, watch, and then listen to your message around it? So it was definitely that. And then I think the closing is also really important. People, like I noticed that a lot of talks, they start, and then it's like, okay, I hope that helps. Have a good day. But I think if you're facilitating an audience journey, an audience experience, like have a strong opening, have a strong closing, and they need to match. Kind of like bread on a sandwich. And it sounds weird, but that's what I tell my clients is it kind of needs to match. I think you establish authority when you can tie it all back together at the end and leave them with something really powerful, like that mic drop moment.
What is your message? Like, what do you want the world to know?
I mean, that's a big one. What do I want the world to know? I want the world to know many things. But the calling is teaching me how to help people access the authentic truth that lives within them without necessarily being a brutal human being. How can you be a positive influence through the use of your voice? Through every time you're speaking, you are speaking life. And it's not about lying or fabricating a story or making something up along the way, but it's about, even if you didn't have some super big tragedy in your life, you still have a message. There's still something there for you to share. And it's your energy, your channel, your ability to communicate it in the way that you do that's going to make all the difference.
What's your message?
I mean, I think that ties into it. My message.
If you were to put your message into a sentence, that someone were to look at this and say, I resonate with that, what would that be?
Are you referring to like a specific talk, or just like what's my mission?
Your message that you want the world to know, you personally.
I think there's a lot of oppression. I think it's deeper than just let's go look good on stage. I think there's a lot of oppression, people not speaking up, and it causes extreme health issues. Mental health, emotional health. And if we could share our message in a way that, how do I say this? it's like facilitating a healing experience when you do start opening up about who you are and what you do. And if you can get to the other side of that story, just like I've had to work on that. So I've seen a therapist for a really long time, and it's like talk therapy. And one of the best things I ever did was take it to a professional. What's something that I'm in the middle of processing, and how can I get to the other side in the best way? How can I take this information, this circumstance, whatever it is that I'm encountering in my life, and file it to where it's going to serve me in my best interest? And then how can I take not all of it, but some of that and help somebody with that? So there's a lot of oppression. I spent many years watching other people not be able to speak up. I myself was not able to speak up. And I think it wreaks havoc on our society when we don't speak up in a healthy way. And I think that's pretty much the bottom line. Then there's the strategy behind my message as well, which is how to use storytelling, how to use the structure, and like the actual coaching aspect. I like to teach that too.
Who is Robin behind the mic?
Who is Robin behind the mic? Oh,
Yeah.
I like this question. I see this powerhouse. I actually see a powerhouse in me, and she's been trying to, it's like a fire that's been like, it's like trying, it's working on it. I have to give myself permission to be her though. I haven't given myself full permission to step into the full power of who I am. So I don't know how to define it. I don't know if it's a specific identity or a specific energy to answer that question, but there's a powerhouse that exists in me, and I don't know how to bring her to life in a way that's not going to like sometimes I feel like I could destroy stuff, but I don't want to destroy. But I have that truth teller in me, and I want it to come through with sharp clarity, and I want it to actually add value to people's lives. I'm not up here just to be a performer. I'm not a performer. I want to be a teacher, an educator, a thought leader. I want to be a transformational speaker.
What are some of the challenges that you experience in general, like outside of the limelight, outside of the podcast, outside of the stages, when you're in the hotel room by yourself and or wherever you're staying at in the world? And you know, I used to be on tour. I used to go on tour. I was on tour with Les Brown. I was on tour with a ton of other speakers, and my job was filling up the seminar rooms.
Okay.
And when I would travel, there was a lot of lights, a lot of glitz and glamour on stage, and then it would be that moment that I enter the hotel room and it's late at night, and I put my bag down and it's pitch dark because I'm tired. I don't want to even turn on the lights, and sometimes even in my suit, I just go and lay down, and it's just like, and there's like this overcoming of authenticity at that moment. Who is that for Robin?
Like, who am I after a big event, or just
who are you outside of the glitz and the glamour and the light? The lights in the camera, the action, outside of that.
I'm a very spiritual woman. I love peace and coffee. I like to relax, but I also do like to do a lot of self-discovery, because I think the only way I'm going to be able to really relate to other people on this journey is to have understood myself in those good and bad aspects of myself. So for the past few years, that's what I've been working on. When I'm alone, I'm figuring out how can I improve? How did that go? I always reflect on the moment. Sometimes it's just a matter of releasing the energy, relaxing and resetting and grounding. But then it's like, okay, what needs to change? Because I always think if I'm going to grow and become the person I want to be, I have to keep changing. And it's just a constant commitment to change and evolution until I feel I am the person I want to be, until I've embodied her to where I can see her on stages or I can see her on camera like this. And I'm like, that's her. I'm waiting to get to her. And so behind closed doors, I'm not actively dating. I'm not doing any of that. I don't care. I don't care. I'm burnt out on it. I've had not some great experiences. So I just decided we're going to put it down for now. I don't like who I'm attracting. I need to wait until I'm attracting in the right people before I say yes to this again, like dating. So I'm not doing any weird stuff behind closed doors. Like I'm not drinking. I don't do drugs. What I'm always doing is figuring out how can I get closer to the person I'm trying to become.
And what does that person look like?
She's that powerhouse. She's the person that's getting invited to speak everywhere. She's the next wave of awesomeness that's going to come through and help people.
When we look at your career, does the corporate world help you in your entrepreneurship journey as a business owner? Has it helped you? Has it given you systems, processes? Has it given you a different way of thinking? Or has it actually impaired and impacted negatively your journey as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I'm one of those people who had a positive experience in corporate, even though I was like, okay, it's time to go. The top of the list was the people I worked with. Never in my life have I worked with such amazing people. My manager, my team set the standard for what I think a team should operate as. And it was my manager who gave me the first opportunity. So I went to her and I said, look, I'd been there for a few days. I had a promotion in 2 years, which is unlikely because usually it's people that are at the company 20 and 30 years. Then they're getting a senior role. I got a senior role in 2 years, but I had to earn it. After staying in that role for a bit, I just went to her and I said, look, I'm being called to public speaking. And I feel like I need to move in that direction. And instead of her being a manager that's like, oh, this is going to be hard to hire the next person, train the next person, instead of going that route, she said, I want you to look over here. And I want you to go and see this business women's organization where they do speaking and see if there's an opportunity for you there. And she opened the first door for me. Team first. They helped me feel what support, like real support, real care was. And then, yes, I was on highly technical like IT projects inside of the company. So it's a utility industry. So we're talking about the energy grid. All right. We're talking about how can we optimize the energy grid. So when there's an outage, not everybody's getting wiped out, but we're able to isolate closer to where the issue is. So I nerded out hard on this stuff. And again, I'm facilitating the experience. I can get people to A to B in an hour. Like I know how to do this. I was pretty good at it, but I'm talking about stuff that's not really close to my heart. Right. So it gave me the foundational training I needed. They also paid for my college, full tuition reimbursement, showed me great people, showed me systems and processes, didn't even know it existed at that level. It taught me how to produce work for a large organization. All of that paid off.
How has your background in business leadership shaped your coaching methods?
I've learned, I don't know what the name is for this type of leader, but I've learned it's better sometimes to be on the floor with your people than it is to sit here and try and be that authoritative figure at the top. I'm not here to put people down. My job is to empower. I want to see the leader in you stand up so you can take ownership of this role. At some point, I want my people to essentially like, I work for them, right? I don't need it to be the other way around. I don't like to play the game of who's at the top and then report to me like that. I want to build these people up so that way they're all fully empowered, operating at their fullest, bringing their best forward. So I don't know what that kind of leader is called. Is it like, I don't know if it's servant leader. I don't know what it is, but I think there's like 6 or 7
Depends
types.
on what book you read. You'll have
Facts.
different, depends on what book you read. There's a picture that reminds me of what you're talking about. It's like an ancient picture where there's a man sitting on a desk and he's being pulled by, maybe you've seen it online. He's being pulled by the slaves or the workers. And he has like a whip saying like, go,
Right.
and he's being pulled. And then there's right underneath that photo is the same desk and the same people pulling, but this leader, instead of being on the desk sitting down, he's in the front. He's saying, go, go. And he's pushing and he's telling us, go in that direction. And the comparison is boss versus leader. The leader is the one that's like in the front saying, go, go. And that's what I imagine a leader is. And the boss is, I'm telling you what to do, and I'm going to lean back and chill while you do it, without any context of what it takes to do the work per se, or ever being involved in general.
Yeah, I'm all about, I'll get my hands dirty with my people because I want them to see what it's like for me to be in it with them. And I don't want to separate. I don't want to create that divide between myself and the team. And I want them to be that kind of person as well.
I know in corporate that it's a different experience because you're not responsible for all areas. You have your role and you're responsible for a portion of the business, not the entire business. But when you become an entrepreneur, you're responsible for the entire business. Has that change been a big change, or has it been like, hey, you were already ready for it, you studied for this, and you know how to manage all facets and areas of being a business owner?
Yeah, I did not study for this. I took a leap, and it was like a 30-day transition. That was very fast. It felt like I was jumping out of a plane and hoping my parachute worked. It was really drastic. So you're right. I was assigned we were called the business process management team, and we would get assigned to certain projects so that way they could execute more efficiently and they were more clear on the direction they were taking so they could make more informed business decisions. I was not responsible for the different departments like marketing, sales, admin, finance. I was not responsible for all of that. So in a sense, it wasn't yet developed in me. And I think the hardest part is like our brain doesn't really know. I tell people all the time that work with me who are thinking about leaving their 9-to-5 job. It's kind of like walking into a store. You already have the employee mindset. If you could walk into a store and buy a mindset, right? You already have this one. You know exactly how you operate here. But this one that's for the entrepreneur, you have to understand that everything's going to change when you put this one on.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, it's built out those parts in me as I built out the business. I think that's why they say too, entrepreneurship is a spiritual journey.
Yeah.
Right. And it's, oh my gosh, it's like, I don't even care. Like I'm so humble about everything now. Like you get stripped of everything, you know, like you have like multiple ego deaths. Like you go through a drastic change in order to make this happen. And I don't know what the next 10 years holds, but I hope it gets easier.
Maybe. Maybe. And where can people learn more about you and find you?
I would say Instagram is the best place, and it's at Robin Riedlinger.
You want to spell it out for us?
Yeah, at ROBYN. It's Robin with a Y. And then Riedlinger is RIEDLANGER.
And when people reach out to you and they want to learn for speaking, what is their journey? Like, what's their path going to look like? If they reach out to you and say, hey, look, I love what I heard so far. I'm interested to start. What does that path look like? If you can lay out that roadmap for us.
For sure. So sometimes we have to build that. And the best recommendation I have for people is to have an idea of where you want to go. Because I'm not here to it's not like you're learning Spanish, right? We're not just going back and forth on calls. We need to put you in a vehicle that's going to get you to where you want to go. And so either through our practice together, our coaching together, we get that, we get the clarity around that, or they already have an idea. I want to be on this stage. How can I get here? So I would say have either an idea or a guess around where you want to go, because that's going to determine the vehicle that you get in to get there. Yes?
Yeah, that's huge.
Cool.
That's huge. It sounds like clarity is so important.
Yes.
It's not just a matter of like, I want to speak. Hey, Robin. And it's like, well, what does that look like? I don't know. It sounds like by having that clarity, if you have an engagement coming, reach out to Robin. If you don't have one and you want to start getting engagements, reach out to Robin. But clarity of your vision is important.
We start there. For sure.
Robin, thank you so much for being on this episode.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much, Andy.
Thank
I appreciate it.
That's it.